By the way, let's. We have Joe Pirro here with us from Pastime Legends, and he's also part of our ICFS crew.
Hey.
And
Hey,
Joe. Joe, hey.
Hey guys.
Let me.
Thank you.
Turn Richard's microphone.
Might deform the microphone.
Joe, can you give us like an update of what's happening with what's the state of the art in video
game stuff? Well, indie games are really big now, and AAA titles are starting to kind of fade back a little bit.
What is it? Explain that.
So like
to us.
big games, like really expensive blockbuster, like the big games are kind of
right.
Weak right now, and then
the Spider-Mans and the Grand Theft Auto stuff.
Everybody's trying to program games for like your phone because it's such a big platform.
Right.
And but it's interesting. It's a really cool time in gaming because people are actually having like a really big influence on what's going on as far as the success of games. And there's some really interesting stuff where companies have tried to kind of take advantage of the market, and then people just kind of like backlash, and we're just like, no, they torpedoed their game. And I feel bad for the programmers because it's not really their fault.
What games?
I don't know if you. So a big movie one, Star Wars.
Yeah.
Star Wars Battlefront.
Right.
The whole
EA.
thing with the microtransactions. That was a little while ago, but that really tanked the game. EA
Was the game good?
Take
the microaggressions or the microtransactions out of it.
Yeah.
Was the game actually decent enough?
A lot of people said there wasn't enough content. A lot of people just said the game wasn't fleshed out enough. But the people love the old ones, and Knights of the Old Republic and all the old Xbox ones.
What was the Nintendo 64 one? Shadow of the Empire.
Shadows of the Empire. That was fun. And back on PlayStation 1, they had a game called Dark Forces. It was like a shooter, but that one's pretty cool. There's a lot of neat Star Wars games. Interestingly enough, they made Terrascasi canon for some reason. There was this thing with Mara Jade and Masters of the Terrascasi. It was like this fighting technique thing. But it's one of the worst games. It is a terrible, terrible game. And in the last movie, they were like, I used a thing called Terrascasi. It was in the last one, I think, Last Jedi. They mentioned Terrascasi in The Last Jedi. So now that game and the stuff is like canon, and the game's not really, but like the lore in it and parts of it, and I don't know. It's just weird. The whole Mara Jade, I think, was supposed to be like, I can't remember whose kid. It was like Luke's kid or something going on, and I can't remember. It was just, but I just remember the game being really bad.
Yeah.
Like I remember playing it, and I played it a lot because when you're a kid, you don't have a lot of games. You play the ones you have a lot. And I played the heck out of it, and then I tried to get my friends to play it, and they were like, "This is terrible, this is awful. Like, why can we play something like a real game now?"
But Star Wars, there was a lot of good Star Wars games, right?
A lot of bad ones. There's just a lot of games for Star Wars. There's you got they're hard. The thing is, they're really hard. And back for the early ones, there wasn't. It was you didn't have a lot of help back then. Nowadays, if you start to fail in a game, the game kind of helps you. Back then, not so much.
Well, I remember the arcade.
Star Wars arcade.
Our Star Wars arcade. It was very archaic and
vector graphics.
Yes.
Yeah, that was. But that's still a very sought after machine. That's still people love that. And it worked because in the movie, that's what they used.
Exactly.
Right.
So
it was very authentic.
The technology was pretty much mirrored.
Yeah.
Well, they have a current one that's kind of like the dome where you open the dome.
Yeah. That's a
similar.
It's like a projector game. That's
they
use a projector to make a cockpit, and that's very immersive.
It had it was very immersive. It was kind of like a round kind of dome. I think they have it at Dave and Buster's.
Dave and Buster's, they love those big. Those things are so expensive, but they're cool. If you were to buy one, but. They're really it's neat and it's unique, and I'm glad that there's a whole that's gonna be the arcade experience for a lot of the younger people. And I know earlier we were talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I used to play that game in the arcade all the time, and I just love those games, and they would have a arcade version and then a home version. And so the home version for Nintendo was pretty terrible, actually. No, it wasn't really terrible, but it wasn't nearly as good as the arcade version.
I think when you take the fact that you can actually play it at home, you kind of forgave how terrible it was.
That's what it was. It was a compromise.
Because it was just like, oh, this is awesome. I'm playing it at home. So you kind of used your imagination to kind of build up the sprites or whatever.
And I think that imagination is a really good concept, like the way that people would fill in the blanks, and some of those more simplistic games, you see a big return to that now. So like nowadays you see games like there's a game called Shovel Knight, and it's this like really basic game that it's a little platformer, and it's really fun, and the character's named Shovel Knight. He's got a little shovel and he's a knight, and you gotta it's cute. But it's also basic, and like those games, we're seeing kind of a return to a lot of that. That's a hugely popular game. People love that character, and it's very successful. But back to Turtles and TMNT Turtles in Time.
Yeah, that's the one, right? The one
and people like the console version better than the arcade version for that.
Super Nintendo one, right?
Which and I was planning for the ICFS event. I was gonna bring Turtles in Time, and I was gonna bring an old console TV.
How would that? Oh, I was gonna say, because how would the 16-bit graphics look on the big screen?
I was gonna for the couch people in the front, or anybody who wants to come down and play it. They can come down and play it on the Super Nintendo on an old tube console.
That's the way to go.
So I found one in the trash over the summer, and it works great. It's awesome, and the feel and the aesthetic and the authenticity of like having a tube TV, a console TV, and the system.
Well, I remember when LCDs, the first few years of LCDs, people were like, "Oh man, the CRTs," because it was always better to do like when you're doing fine stuff like Photoshop and a lot of things. People liked the big CRT monitors because you could get in the details with the CRT monitor because it flugged the pixels. Whereas this LCDs, when they first came out, were just like, there you are.
It's fine.
People were like,
in the world of illustration, I preferred the LCD because a point was a point. Right?
True.
It wasn't because I was drawing precise illustration, and on my small LCD screen, I could make it just exactly right. And when I went to tube, it was definitely an adjustment.
Sure. Yeah, there was a time there when it was like the LCD came out, and I remember people were like really scrambling to really get the CRT, miss the CRT monitors, and when you go to CRT, it's like, this is kind of better.
Well, that's the thing. It's the black levels. The black levels on a CRT are typically better than an LCD.
Right.
The only thing that's rivaled that today is the OLED stuff.
Exactly.
And that actually has a little bit deeper.
Crazy black.
Or the QLED. Excuse me.
That's just brand.
But it's all whatever, As far as the tube TV goes, I want it to be, authentic.
Yeah.
I want people to feel like, they're back in their childhood a little,
Our history with gaming, and it came from Schenectady, starts with Joe Pirro. And
that was fun.
Can you bring us back there?
10 years ago, it was a long time ago. We did like a little event, but like the first real big, fun, amazing event that we were part of that made me fall in love with ICFS was the Halloween marathon. Yeah. And I remember we had a whole big setup, and it was really cool. We had Castlevania, we had some of the Zombies Ate My Neighbors, all these different, horror games set up. And people were coming and hanging out and playing with us.
I remember that.
Yes.
Downstairs.
Yeah, it was so much fun.
It was really cool.
It was a ton of fun. And
in makeup.
It was almost before. It was almost before everybody took pictures and blogged everything.
Very true.
Yeah. Because nowadays, if something like that happened, we were like all over it. Like,
well, we had a few. There was a little bit, but back then smartphones were still kind of new. 4G was still kind of new.
People were still on Blackberries with the buttons.
I feel so old. And then it's weird that it was 10 years ago. And then I remember we were. Someone was playing a game and they were going to beat it, and there was like a little crowd behind them, and then they finally beat it, and they were like, oh, and I was like, this is great, and I loved all the movies, we had a great lineup. It was like one of the, and that was it. I was like, all right, well, I want to do cool game event. Like this community is amazing. Like these people are amazing, and I also wish that there was more of that when I was a kid. Because when I was a kid, ICFS wasn't around. So and it was really wonderful to see that happen and be part of it, as far as the, like, including games and stuff. And then we did like a ton of events after that together. So
if you go back to the roots of ICFS, right, when we were just sitting around, just a few people talking about it, one of my inspirations for coming to the table were stories my father told about what we now would refer to as value-added cinema, right, where he'd go to a movie, but there'd be games. There'd be games in the lobby. So for the same money, you'd go play a game.
Like,
then
what
you'd
kind of
come back
games?
and see, I guess they were like arcade type games or maybe shuffleboard. I don't know, but they'd play games, they'd go to movies.
Right,
It was an
okay.
entire day. And that inspired, that was one of, and also Proctor's has it.
that arcade culture, it doesn't exist in the same form anymore. But we do have something like that with the like esports community and things like that. But it's nice that in certain movies like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I remember being a kid and they bring the Danny to like the foot layer, and there's tons of arcade machines.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And it's like,
that's
and
right.
and that was kind of like when I watched that as a kid, I was like, that'd be so cool. Like they're skateboarding and all this stuff, and that whole, I think it really was like community thing. People see, and that's what the idea of like the Foot Clan was like. In the movie, they made it appealing, like, because otherwise you're like, why would I join the evil guys, And then you see
a whole arcade there.
and I was like, oh wow, you can go play you can skateboard and meet girls, and you can do all this stuff. You're like, oh, now I get why kids are start joining the Foot Clan. I'm like, man, and it's just interesting.
When do
that,
you start to don the suit, though? That's a real, that like, you have to start.
What,
you have to,
the Foot Clan outfit?
Yeah, when do you
uniform.
graduate? When do you play all the games?
So can we wrap up with a little rapid fire where we're at with gaming right now?
Right now, so Fortnite's fading out. That was the big game for a while. Apex Legends seems to be doing really well. Anthem did really bad. Metro might be good. Everybody's really excited for Cyberpunk, the new Cyberpunk game that's coming out. And that one is going to be offline, single-player story mode, which people have been saying they want that because everything's been online. Now they're doing an offline, story-driven game, so that's exciting. And you're going to see a lot of film inspirations from, Blade Runner and all the other, really awesome sci-fi cyberpunk movies. So that'll be interesting. And other than that, the big news right now is Microsoft and Nintendo are working together. And it looks like they might be doing like a cross-platform thing with their online and working together. And Sony is kicking themselves, saying we were tone deaf to our audience, and we apologize. Like, hey, can we join you guys? And I don't know what's gonna happen, but we'll see. But if the big three unite, then it only would help gamers, I think, and it would be really it's an exciting time.
Although, would there be less choice?
Well, that's what they worry about, but the fact that the community's response has been so powerful, like with EA and a lot of other companies now having to cut down employees because the community was like, hey, we're not going to support this. I think that the voice of the gamers is powerful enough right now where they're going to win out. Gotcha. So
cool. All right.
Well, thank you, Joe.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you very much.